Sometimes, while reading Jinx, I am wondering if Jaekyung's common sense dropped between his legs after receiving so many punches on his head due to his career and status as a champion. I can't find any other legitimate reasons to his acting in the last Jinx chapter 62, and trust me, when I tell you that my jaw literally dropped LOL. We already understood that he genuinely thinks money can give him anything and anyone. He truly believes that Kim Dan and his affection can be bought. I mean, that was their agreement before, but things have changed. Kim Dan has changed. Now even Jaekyung notices that Kim Dan's attitude towards the relationship isn't the same anymore. But honestly, I still can't believe that Kim Dan suggested that they should do it again one last time. To me, it seems not as an act of weakness, because Kim Dan now got his long-awaited answer, that Jaekyung does all this because of his jinx, and not because he cares for Kim Dan. At least that's how it seems to Kim Dan, and that's what Jaekyung told him. So I assume that he did what he did in order to get rid of Jaekyung as fast as possible. I mean, Kim Dan has every right to be mad. The crazy man Jaekyung followed Kim Dan into this village, annoyed him at work, and now has the audacity to pay Kim Dan to take care of his jinx. While Kim Dan was always genuinely happy to be with Jaekyung and stayed with him and loyal, no matter what crap Jaekyung pulled. His mental health is the lowest at the moment, since he has a lot of things in his plate right now: the health condition of his grandma, his habit of drinking, or the nightmares with sleepwalking. I guess he just doesn't have the strength anymore to deal with Jaekyung and his bratty behavior. This chapter also showed that Kim Dan is still fighting guilty feelings and accusing himself for being at fault for Jaekyung's last match. He's overthinking things and even remember any moment with Jaekyung and how he was treated by him. Also, while reading chapter 62, it was quite striking how Jaekyung, or how he was called, Jigging, was acting around the elders and how helpful and respectful he was. It was quite interesting since he talks back to Coach, or even doesn't call Kim Dan Hyung, but remains respectful, for example, to Kim Dan's grandma or other elders. Could it be related to his backstory? So in the last thoughts, theories, and predictions video on chapter 62, we discussed 3 possible scenarios. First, Jaekyung trying more to win Kim Dan over to come with him back to Seoul and even work for him. That did occur, and at the end of the chapter, we saw Kim Dan kinda done by it. Second, the introduction of a third character that did not happen. Third, Kim Dan getting drunk and being honest to Jaekyung. Although these scenarios did not happen, in my opinion, they are still realistic and still can somehow occur during the plot. Who knows? Though Jaekyung might think with his thing down there, to me it seemed for a second as if it wasn't about arousal, but his hidden feelings when he saw Kim Dan naked again. Maybe I'm delusional though, and I'm not defending Jaekyung. What if they even part ways afterwards, and the real chasing arc will begin? I think this is likely to happen. They'll do it. But Kim Dan is going to be cold and absent-minded. Jaekyung will notice that Kim Dan just wants to quickly get it over with. There was a moment before the match he lost, where Kim Dan was already cold and distant when they did it. Perhaps Jaekyung will feel terrible afterwards, and after some time he might will realize that it's not only Kim Dan's body that he wanted. Another possibility might be that Jaekyung will get aggressive or rough because of being annoyed by Kim Dan's distant behavior. They'll either do the whole thing half-heartedly or even won't finish. Even in this scenario, Kim Dan will leave as soon as possible and leave Jaekyung with empty feelings. In this scenario, Kim Dan and Jaekyung won't do it only once, since Kim Dan is saying, "It'd be better for me to sleep with you and make 10 grand more with teary eyes." Right after that, he's saying, it was $5,000 a night, right? So why is Kim Dan talking of 10 grand first when it's $5,000 a night? Will they do it twice in total? Would it be possible that Kim Dan started to cry since he already had teary eyes while suggesting doing it? Am I missing something? So what do you think will happen in chapter 63? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments.